Hi there. In this video I wanted to just show a couple examples of using the isValid node. So just looking into our project, I have an actor to destroy, which is simply a sphere. There's nothing in the event graph. I have got my setup blueprint, which just has enable input triggered under event begin play, so that within that actor I can now use these input nodes for these two keystrokes, so X and H. So we'll start with our example X. In here I am just getting actor of class, which is the sphere in our viewport, saving that locally, and then destroying the actor. So let's run that. If I press X, it destroys the actor, but say I continue to press X. Now this is obviously an input, but it could be an event firing or something similar. So the actor had already been destroyed. So if we come out of that, I've now got these blueprint runtime errors pointing me to the destroy actor. So after the actor is destroyed, it doesn't exist anymore. So running this code to destroy it is creating this runtime error. So we can use a isValid node to validate whether or not that actor still exists. So if we come to our setup blueprint, here I have an isValid node. So isValid, if you just put that in, you'll get a few different, if you start looking at what categories they sit under, there's quite a few isValid nodes. But if you come down to time management, this is the one that we're looking here, prefixed by the question mark. Okay. What we can now do is we can bring in our actor and say, if it is valid, destroy it. And I'll just drag out that variable. So on X, get actor of class. If it is valid, destroy it. If it is not valid, then do nothing. So press X once, it destroys it. Keep pressing it. Come to escape, no error message. So that has cleared those blueprint runtime errors. Coming to our second example, I have created a widget that I am adding to viewport. So if we come in and look at our widget, I've got a white image that I've just called white box, and under the event construct I've got white box where I'm setting the position. Now just as an aside, with an image you have to run it through the slot as canvas slot to be able to affect its position in the viewport, in the canvas rather, technically. And I'm just running a random float in range for the X and Y position. So coming to our example, if I press H once, we've created the widget. But if I press it again, this is a keystroke, but it might be another bit of logic that is firing that HUD. You can now see we're creating multiple versions of that HUD. Now the reason I've set this up with a random position is so that you can see that there's multiple versions. If it was just a piece of text in one location, you might not actually be aware that you've got 10 or 15 versions of the same HUD on top of each other because you can't see them. Hence adding this random position just to illustrate the point. So how do we fix it? So there you'll see we don't get, on that occasion, we don't get a blueprint runtime error because there isn't an error. Each of those HUDs did exist and they were valid, but it's not what we want in terms of how we want the logic to work. So coming to our blueprint, this is the additional bit of blueprinting that we want to add in. And we're actually going to add it at the beginning. So here we are saying on press, if our local saved variable of the widget is valid, then remove it from the parent before creating the widget again. So we're in effect seeing if it already exists, clearing it, and then creating a new one and adding it to the viewport. And if it's not valid, i.e. the first time it runs, then create the widget and it just performs that. So now if we come back to our viewport and now press the H key, you can see as I'm pressing it, it's only ever one instance of that widget on screen because we're clearing it before creating the next one. Another thing to point out is, these are kind of visual examples. There may be instances where you've got different variables that you are having to see if something is still valid or not. So, take this as a kind of concept for validating if something exists, but that can be applied across all sorts of other blueprint variables. Another thing to point out is that here I've got this variable which is just a reference to the actor to destroy it. It's not got anything in it in terms of the default value. But rather than creating this node in relation to this, you can simply right click and convert to validated get, and you get this node which does the same job. So with this example is valid HUD, we can get, right click, convert to validated get. And in theory we can just replace that and it should be the same thing. Let's have a look. And there we are. So right clicking and switching from a pure get to a validated get just is shorthand for the same thing. So I hope that video is of use. If so, please do like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive any updates. And thank you for your support.